Welcome everyone. Just poof. Going live on my computer here. It's going to be kind of low tech for my standards. Probably it's going to be very high tech for people who are not used to this kind of thing. But for me, if you ever came to one of my classes, you would know that this is really low tech. Where they hear no fancy cameras, no fancy microphones. But it's going to be a great study session, hopefully. Something that I haven't really taught much in the past. I'll explain in a minute. Hello. Hi, Shelley.
Hi, Rabbi.
Welcome.
Thank you.
I hope people at home can hear me, but I'm using my computer microphone. We'll see how it goes. Does anybody know what time I have to finish?
No idea. It's 10 o'clock.
Sorry? No, what time?
8:25.
8:25. 8:25.
Okay, so let's begin. And welcome everyone again. Let me tell you a little bit of background of today's class. As I mentioned, this is not something that I usually teach. Okay? I'm a little bit outside of my comfort zone, not because I don't know it. It's because I usually avoid teaching Kabbalah because I believe that one has to be very careful when teaching Kabbalah. I was talking during dinner that Kabbalah is more like a science, and when you teach Parsha, it's more like an art, right? Kabbalah is baking, okay? Parsha is cooking. So Kabbalah has to be very precise, and you will see in a minute why it has to be so precise, because it comes from the numbers, okay? So it's almost like an exact science. Before that, there is a very famous story from the Talmud, and it's repeated in the Zohar with a few changes, that is talking, it's the foundation of understanding Kabbalah. The story itself is a little bit complicated to understand. So let me read it for you, and hopefully I will explain this as a little introduction to the class. It says, listen to this. The rabbis taught, 4 enter the Pardes. Have you ever heard that word, Pardes? If you study Torah, for example, Pardes is what is the word? Acronym. P-R-D-Sh. The P is Peshat, which usually understanding as the literal meaning or the plain meaning of the verse. Or every story you're reading, you have the plain meaning, right? Without any experience, you read it, it's when you understand from it. Then you have the which is the Remes, which is studying it from an allegoric point of view. Well, when you read it's not what you think it is, it's an allegory to something else. Then you have that is the Drash, which is the Midrash, which is another way to study Torah. Usually what Midrash does is to fill up the gaps. For example, if you study the story of creation, it says, in the beginning God created the heavens and the earth. What happened before that? But the Torah doesn't say it, but the Midrash will be there to tell you, to fill up the gaps, what happened. The Midrashim say that there was another creation before, and that didn't work out, or it will be, for example, the Midrash will present some kind of imaginary conversation between God and the angels that resulted in the creation. So that's the 3rd level. What is the 4th level of this Pardes? It is Sod. Sod means secret, usually understood as Kabbalah. Okay? So this text is very interesting. It says, 4 rabbis entered the Pardes. It means 4 rabbis try to fully understand the Torah. How do you fully understand the Torah? You engage into the study of the 4 levels. You want to know about the literal meaning. You want to know about the allegories that you can learn from the Torah. There are beautiful allegories there. You will see that sometimes some of the stories in the Torah, for example, about the menorah. You read about the menorah in the temple. Well, the menorah is not just about the light, it's the light who projects into the world, right? It's a beautiful allegory there. So that's the second level. The third one, you want to get familiar with the Midrashim, because they have a lot to teach us. And then the fourth one is the Kabbalah, the Sod. So the four rabbis tried to master the four levels. So what happened? Well, these rabbis were Ben Azai, Ben Zoma, Acher. Have you ever heard the name Acher?
Other.
The other, that was Elisha ben Abuya, who was excommunicated, and he should not be named. It's like Harry Potter, you know who. Pretty much the same. I always think that sometimes these stories are based on, sometimes biblical stories of things, because Elisha ben Abuya, we never say the name. We always say Acher, okay? Of course, we say it in classrooms, but that's it. And then the fourth one was the famous Rabbi Akiva. Now, before they started to study, Rabbi Akiva said to them, and then you will see why is Rabbi Akiva warning the others. Rabbi Akiva said to them, when you come to the place of pure marble stones, easy to understand, right? Do not say, water, water. For it is said, he who speaks untruth shall not stand before my eyes. Is it clear?
Definitely.
It's not. It's not. Ben Azai gazed and died. Regarding him, the verse states, precious in the eyes of God is the death of his pious ones. Ben Zoma gazed and was harmed. He went cuckoo. Regarding him, the verse states, did you find honey? Eat as only much as you need, lest you be overfilled and vomited up. And Acher, Rabbi Elisha ben Abuya, cut down the plantings. He became a heretic. After that, it was interesting. It said that you will see why he became a heretic. Rabbi Akiva entered in peace and left in peace. That's why he was able to give the advice at the beginning. Okay? So, about these three rabbis, we don't have time to go into details of each one of them. I could just teach a whole class on why this happened specifically to these three rabbis, the one who failed. Because they have it wasn't their character. One was a mystic that, according to the story, he stopped eating, just studying before he died, right? The other one was a rationalist, and he tried to use his logic to understand all the levels, and there is that far that you can go just with logic, right? Rabbi Elisha ben Abuya was the one who actually was the closest. He was able to reach the four levels. He mastered Kabbalah, but then the problem with him is after he mastered Kabbalah, he said, this is the only one that is important, the other three are not. You know the part this, the P, R, D, the Pshat, Remes, Drash, that's for the ignoramus. Those are tales for the kids. The only real thing is the Kabbalah, so you don't need the mitzvot. You don't need to go to synagogue. You don't need to pray to God the way the ignorants do it, because there is a higher level. That's why he said he cut ties with Judaism. All the commandments, according to him, they were useless. Nothing in comparison with discovering that high place. So, going back, and this is where it gets interesting. Why would Rabbi Akiva said, when you come to the place of pure marble stones, do not say water, water. And then he said, he who speaks untruth. So basically, going to that place of pure marble stones and saying, water, water is not true. What is that? And this is something that you have to understand before you start studying Kabbalah. And it is what happened before creation. Before creation, all what it was unity. The unity of God. You know when we say Shema Israel, Adonai Elohim, Adonai Echad. But it's a oneness that we cannot even comprehend. Because when you say Echad, it's number one, right? We use it all the time in math. 1 + 1 is 2. It doesn't make any sense because God is one and there is nothing outside God. So it's not the same one that we use in math. That's why some translation of the Shema Israel will not say God is one, they say God is unique, or using other words to avoid these kind of confusions that in Kabbalah are very common. So we have to be very careful. So when you embark into Kabbalah, what you do is you get closer and closer, and you get to understand better and better the original oneness of God. So when you enter into the spiritual realm to understand God, saying water, water, how many times say water? Twice, is the untruth. Because the duality of the water, of any other kind of duality, light and darkness, and so forth, belong to this world, not to God. Yes?
Where did Kabbalah come from?
Kabbalah, this is very interesting. Thank you for the question. Kabbalah comes from the Hebrew word lekabel, which means to receive. So all the things, even the things that I'm going to teach tonight, they are not things that I came out with. It's not that one day I decided to go and make all these connections, or some other rabbis went and tried to make these connections and came out with this class. It was received in ancient times. We believe that God revealed to Moses the written Torah, the one we have there, plus the oral law, which is what we have to do, but it's not written in the Torah, or how to understand certain things in the Torah. And at the same time, Moses also received all these mystic teachings, and that was communicated from generation to generations. The difference is, the written Torah is there for everyone. You can go to the bookstore and read it and buy it, right? Back in the day, you can go to a scribe, you can get a copy. The oral law was a little bit more complicated. You needed a rabbi, you have to go to yeshiva to learn the oral law. And the third level, because these secret teachings of the Torah that it was communicated to Moses, it was passed from generation to generation, but only one-on-one. So you will need to find somebody who was initiated in Kabbalah, who received it from somebody else, so this person can give it to you. Why was this necessary? And hopefully you will be able to see this and experience this. Why was it necessary to do it one-on-one? Because when you start getting into the realm of spirituality, when things don't have a shape, a form, time, how do you really teach that? If we live in a world where everything has 3 dimensions, even if you had to imagine something inside your head, even if you're not aware of that, you have an image. You have an image, which, by the way, it's interesting that Torah said, and God said, you should not have an image. Think about that. Okay, so what happened is, traditional Kabbalah, you have the person who received the teaching from their masters, and they got it. But it was more like, when you have a gut feeling, you understand it. But how do I teach it to you? How can I be sure that you got it? That's why this one-on-one is a trial and error until the teacher believes that the student got it. Okay? And let me give you an example how difficult it is to teach Kabbalah. All this concept that they have no image. How can I teach you what I feel? What is the difference between eating chocolate and strawberry? How can I teach you that with words? How do you teach a blind person the difference between red and white or red and green? You understand how difficult this is, okay? But don't worry, we are not going to go that far. We're going to start with something more basic, which is the structure of, or some of the foundations from Kabbalah. Let's go to text 2.
And one
Yes.
supplemental. How much Kabbalah is there? Is it like a Torah, as big as much as that, or any more?
They are teachings. It's a lifetime of engagement. The most famous book of Kabbalah is the Zohar. In this day and age, it was printed since the Middle Ages. Since the Middle Ages it was printed. Before that, there is no record that it was ever produced a copy of the Zohar. Okay? It was a scholar called Moses de Leon. Some people think he was actually the author. Some people think that the author of the Zohar was Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai, the famous one we celebrate on Lag BaOmer. I will leave it there. But there is lots. Yes, Sefer Yetzirah, Sefer Haba'ir, a lot. Okay, a lot. Now, if you see, let's go to the first, to text B. You know what? For people at home, I should have done this. I have it here. But at least I can go now to text you. Okay, text 2, the B. It says, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. This is the beginning. Okay, if you want to start to understand the world from the point of view of Kabbalah, you have to go to the creation of the world. It says, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz, when God began to create heaven and earth. Many different translations there. What is the first letter there? First letter of the Torah? Bet. And bet, which if you know Hebrew, that will have a numerical value of 2. For your convenience, you will have it on page 2, all the values of the Hebrew letters. We are going to talk about the values of the Jewish letters in a minute, Hebrew letters in a minute. So the fact that the Torah starts with the letter Bet is not a coincidence. That is the signature of the world. The signature of creation is the duality. Boom! Something that it was one, as soon as God started creating, getting into the world of the matter, that one, boom, became the two. And everything in this world is marked by the two, as we are going to see very soon. Everything. You will see, even in the first verse, Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. God created in the beginning what? Heaven and earth. Let's continue. And God said, let it be light. And then there was light and darkness. Everything comes in two. Because this is the world of the duality. The world of God is the world of the one. That's why Rabbi Akiva said to the others, when you go to the place of pure marble, probably a metaphor, don't say water, water. That is something, the division of anything, water, water, light and darkness, you name it, does not belong to God. That is for us. So that was the warning that Rabbi Akiva got them. Okay? And the other word that I marked there, et hashamayim, we're going to go back to that in a minute. So let's go to the second page. So, text D. We have the one before creation, right? What I call the one undivided. Then creation began, and all of a sudden you have, the Kabbalists call it, either of the two or the other one of the two. Okay? So in other words, the one that we know and we use in Mass is not the one of God, it's half of the two. Because in this world, what is the main number? The two. So if you have the one, it's just half of the two. Okay? So for the convenience of this, what we are going to do, we are going to have 3 columns now. The right, the left, and the middle. Okay? Just for the convenience that this is the way it was transmitted in Kabbalah. You're probably familiar with the Tree of Life, right? And the Sefirot. And everything is left, right, and middle. Well, which is interesting is once you have the two, and here we are going into a little bit of math. Oh, my math teacher will be so proud. I was so bad at the time. But the two, right? The maximum expression of the two is the 4. Could be the 2, the 3, or the 4. And it's like a box with, with 2 crosses. You have the things. And this is very interesting very important to understand that with the creation of the world, the 2 is the basic division, and the 4 is the 2 interacting with the 2. So it's when we start having diversity in this world. So the duality is the 2, but that's what we call it the pure duality, which eventually can become the 4. So let's put in the right the 1, in the left the 2, and then in the middle we're going to put the 3 and the 4. And this is something that we have to understand, as I mentioned before, that the 4 was already implicit with the creation of the 2. So the rabbis teach, and you will see this in the Torah, and it's going to be mind-blowing, that the 3, it already contains the 4. Okay? Remember that. The 3 already contains the 4. So let's go again to the creation of the world. Okay? Before we go into the look at text F. I keep forgetting to change this here. Look at the creation of the world. Oops, way too much. Day number 1. Okay, what do we have in day number 1 of creation?
Light.
The light, right? And then, but we have the light and darkness, the division. Then day number 2, we have water above, water below, right? But then in day number 3, we have 2 acts of creation. You know when it says, and God said? Day number 1, God said. Day number 2, God said. Day number 3, God said, God said. So the 3 is already dual, it's already double. Okay? So in day number 3, we have the waters above and then the land. That was the first part of the day. I put that part A. And then part B, we have the seed-bearing plants and the fruit-yielding plants. There is another division. It's very interesting. Then if you go to day 4, basically, it's like starting all over again, but at a different level. Look what happened. Day 4, if day 1 was the light, day 4 is the sun, and then the moon and the stars, which is also light, but at a different realm. And then day 5, you have life directed to waters above, life directed to waters below. Okay, again, 2 acts of creation, but it's related to day 2. Can you see that? Mm-hmm. And day 6, the first part we have the cattle and the wild beast, and the second part of the day we have the man and the woman. Yes.
Okay, so in our realm, we get light from the sun. But what is this light?
Which light?
Day 1 light.
Oh, it's interesting. The Torah doesn't say what it is. The Torah doesn't say what the first light is. It's the light of God?
Emet.
Right? Sorry?
Emet, like truth. Because everything's concealed from us, but in that very moment, God created everything that could be seen as the truth.
There are many explanations of what was the original light. Yes, but it's technically there is no physical source of that light, except that the Torah said that it was light and it was darkness. Okay? But it also, on the day 4th, everything started getting more clear, because now you have the sun, the moons, and the stars, right? And you start looking at, the second half of creation, for day 4, 5, and 6, you start seeing part of the creation the way we experience it now. And that's the interesting thing. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. To make it even more clear, hopefully, you can go to text G. And I will move it to the next part. Okay? Now I'm going to put it left, right, and center, so you can understand it better. This is a more Kabbalistic organization of the acts of creation. So day 1, light and darkness. Day 2, waters above, water below. Day 3, A, water, land. B, seeds and fruits. And then day 4, suns, moon, and stars. Day 5, light directed to waters above, light directed to waters below. Day 6, cattle and wild beasts, man and woman. Okay? So again, right, left, and center. We have to understand that based on this and what happened on each day of the creation, the right side of the 3 columns, and I put it there for you, I will switch here online as well. The way each column is known, you see the column on the right, we have the right, also represents male, also represents the sun. Fire represents the Abraham. The day is Sunday. Why is it Sunday?
First day of the week.
Sunday, right? And then in the left you'll have Monday, which is moon day, right? This is to let you know, and I want to expand a little bit about this. This is to let you know that this kind of knowledge, right, is not exclusive of Judaism or of the Torah. It was known in ancient times as well. That's why you have Sunday and Monday. And that's why, for example, are you familiar with the zodiac?
Yep.
What is the first one? I don't know the first one, but I can tell you that the third one is Gemini, the twin.
I think it's Aries.
So the third is double, right? It's so you have 1, 2, and the third is double. So we are going to expand a little bit more on that. So again, first day, right, male, sun, fire, Abraham, Sunday, gold, active, because it's the light, right? It's the light that gives, the giving on the right hand. The second day, or you have the left column, left, female. Why female? It's the one that receives. It's the moon that receives the light of the sun, and so forth. Moon, water, represented with Isaac, is the Monday, silver, passive, receptive, left hand. And in the middle, the Kabbalah knows it as the column of the child. Column of the child. So it's in the middle, child, dual character, Gemini, right? The double. Jacob and Esau, Rachel and Leah. Think about this. Let's talk about the patriarchs and the matriarchs. Okay? You have Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob and Esau. The third is double. When I take Esau out of the picture, Jacob had 2 names. He's the only one. Jacob, so the third is double, right? At the same time, to make even further, to prove even further the point that the 3 contains the 4, you have 3 patriarchs and 4. There you have it. It's exactly the same concept. That the 4 is always implicit in the 3, automatically. And you can see this, it's fascinating. And then again, Jacob had 2 wives, because the 3 is already double, it's already dual. And the same thing that you experience during the act of creation, you will have it also, this situation. Now, you will say, okay, all is good here, but the Torah contains 2 stories of the creation. We don't talk about the second story so much. I don't know why. Sorry?
After the flood part.
Well, the second story. Oh, we have a troll.
Oh, that's nice.
You can say Mazel Tov. Okay. So, I will tell you why we don't talk much about the second story of creation. Because it, in many aspects, totally contradicts the first one. the fact that we have two different stories of creation in the Bible, chapter 1, chapter 2, and that they are so different between them, it gave, food to all the critics of the Torah. I said, yeah, you have multiple writers here, multiple authors. Look how different is one or the other. But if you analyze the two stories from the point of view of Kabbalah, there is no contradiction at all. In fact, it's going to be fascinating the way how all these principles are present in both stories of the creation, chapter 1 and chapter 2. So, let me read the next text. I will change it here. It says, in the second story of creation, man is presented at the very beginning. The beasts are brought to him afterwards, and even the trees come after man. The first tale of creation speaks of Elohim, that's the name of God that we are going to read, where the second tale, without exception, speaks of Adonai Elohim. Now we have a dual name for the second story of creation. Okay? Let's try to use the same pattern that we've been using until now, which is the three columns, the left, the right, and the middle. Okay? Or as I mentioned, you have the male, female, child, and so forth. All the different names that we use, you can find it on a previous text. Okay? The first thing you're going to notice is, that in the first story of creation, it will say, let it be light. Okay? Light, fire, whatever, right? That belongs to the right column. But it's this one, if you go to the Bible, the first reference, it will be that it was a mist, like a steam, which is, what is steam? It's a fancy word for what? Water. So we are already in the other. So first came light, then came water. Is the left and the right. So if the first story of creation is a story of fire or light, the second one is already a story of water.
Yes.
Not much different of what happened with the patriarchs. Abraham is related to fire. Lots of references of light and fire in the story of Abraham in the Torah. From the dream that he had with the fire to the fact that God presents to Abraham when the day was the hottest of the day. Right? Ben Arosh just mentioned that. And there's all the things about Abraham. Abraham the giver. Open doors. He was a giver. Isaac is about water. The wells of the father, and many references. Oh God. 5 minutes, she said. I'll try to move as fast as I can. But it was said the second story and the second patriarch is about water. Okay? And the third one, which is third patriarch? Jacob. What is all about Jacob?
Justice.
Animals. And then the way he controlled nature, when he needed to reproduce all the animals and he was creating things with the branches and things. There is no references. It's incredible how, and then again, because it's the left, the right, and the middle. Left Abraham, then Isaac, and then you have the middle, which is called the child, but it's supposed to be a combination of the two. So it means that Jacob gets from both Isaac and Abraham. Anyway, mist. So in the one, then you have man on the two, and then in the middle column you have the Garden of Eden, the trees, and especially the two trees in the midst. So basically, these are also acts of creation, but in chapter 2, they are. It's not God said. The act of creation happened in a different way, and there are in total 10 acts of creation in the second story. I'm going to go a little faster here, so 5 minutes. you see text J,
Yep.
we have the so at the beginning of chapter 2, it says, but the flow will well up from the ground and water the whole surface of the earth. Look at the word ed, which means the steam, or the vapor,
Mist.
okay, the mist. Hebrew letters, Aleph Dalet, what is it? 1 and 4. Okay, that was from the 1 to the 4. We have to understand that the Hebrew letters for the Kabbalah are the numbers of the letters were created before the sounds of the letter. That is the belief in Kabbalah. And in fact, to be able to assign the number to a letter and to understand any word by the value of that word, it brings you to a way to fully understand what it is without any misunderstanding, right? Because you look at water, for example. Water could be steam, water could be liquid, water could be solid, right? Depends who is experiencing it. You could be seeing one thing, I can be seeing another thing. But if I say to you H2O, no discussion what we are talking about, because we are talking about proportions, right? So the letters brings a quantitative value of the word. And that's why sometimes it's important. So let's continue to see this, because then you will see that God formed a human. So how do you call a human being? In Hebrew, Adam, 1, 4, 40. Adam, 1, 4, 40. And then the other thing that is interesting, that it said in the second story of creation, there was one river, that it became 4 rivers. The 1 and the 4. Again, I wish we'd have more time, but there is something that I want to wrap up with this then, and I have it here, and it's good that I didn't, if you don't mind to pass this along. Mm-hmm. I want to talk about because we saw the 1 and 4 in the 2 columns, but what about the center column? Do we also have the 1 and 4? We do, but in a very special way, and we are going to finish with this.
So what's the 1, 4, and 1, 4, 40? What is that?
Sorry?
What is these numbers?
The number, okay. So,
4, 40, what is it?
Wait.
remember one, no, but it's a good point. I'm going so fast here. Remember that we talk about the 1 is God. The 4 is the creation. Okay? So the word, for example, in Kabbalah, 4, 40, and 400 are the same. It's the same expression. So the fact that the human beings have the 1 and the 4 means we have the oneness of God, right? And we also have the 4, which is the development of the creation. And this is very interesting, because what happened if the human being, Adam, you remove the 1, the Aleph, what you have is dam, it's blood. Even the word emet, which means truth, if you remove the 1, you get death. So the fact that we have the 1 and the 4, that means that we kind of belong to 2 different worlds. We belong to the 1 and we belong to the 4. And our goal is to go back to the 1. That's what we're eventually going to call the Messianic times, when we can go back to that 1. But as I was mentioned, the 1 and 4 proportion was present in the steam, it's present in Adam. But it's even more interesting the way it is in the middle columns when it's talking about the 2 trees. The one that we were allowed to eat, which is the Etz Chaim, the tree of life. But it was also there the Etz Ada'at Tovara, the tree of knowledge of good or bad, and we weren't allowed to eat that one, right? But even that, look at that. Etz Chaim, the numbers of the letters are 7, 70, 90, 5, 10, 5, 8, 10, 10, 40. Okay? If you put it all together, there will be 233. Okay? 233. The other one, the Etz Adat Tobara, altogether is 932. Want to guess how much it is? 932 divided by 233? 4. So you also go from 1 to 4 in the 2 trees. And unfortunately, is for us to rush to it from the one that is the 4, that is the material one, we lost the one that represents the 1. And when we remove the 1, we have met. We have death, which is exactly what happened to Adam and Eve for eating from that tree and neglecting the 1. Okay? I wish I would have more time to continue with this, but that's the beauty of Kabbalah. Yes?
So, Rabbi, what are the chances of you doing maybe a Sunday program on this come fall? And maybe a few of them, like 4 or 5 of them, because it's really interesting, very confusing, but it makes sense, like for the little bits that I could actually absorb.
Okay? Chances, of course. But this is what I wanted to say is, to me, when I read the Torah, it shows you, to me, everything that I learned from the Torah, it gives you an alternative way of reading it. That, you know, all of a sudden now, even if you believe that you have multiple authors before for the Torah, then you realize that it's an alternative way of reading it. And the fact that the same book can give you 4 layers to read it, all the way from the literal meaning to the hidden meaning, to me, it gives me a better understanding of my Creator as well. Okay. Yes. Thank you, everyone. And let's go for cheesecake. Chag Sameach. Thank you. Thank you, everyone at home.
Can I ask you something, Rabbi?